All right, we are live. We are on part three, and I am so happy to our Blueprint to Benefits. Here with the lovely Lindsay again. She is gracing our platform again with some amazing information. So I'll give you a minute to get on, introduce yourself as you come in. But this is the different benefits at different disability ratings. So when you get in, push share and get this information out there because I'm excited. Thank you for whoever joined. Again, if you come on, introduce yourself. If you would share this information, we will greatly appreciate that.
Yes.
I'm excited. This has been so good, and I want to thank you again. I want to keep on thanking you throughout here because this information is needed. Not like it's not out there. We talked about this. Not like there's not information out there, but it's so much
It's a
now.
lot.
It's a lot now, and it's about getting into a space where you can get the information you need that you can, basically bring it in and regurgitate and be able to do what you need to do. So
Right.
I'm excited. I'm thankful that you came on here to give us information, that got that information out to people that needed it. If they sent that information out, again, we need to put that link again in the comments. And if the people need information from you, they can get that information from you. We'll give it a minute and then we will start.
Yeah, I will have that information in the comments, so everyone can drop their email on the form that I'm gonna have, and so I can start emailing them stuff.
Yay! Okay, let me go in here. Try to. So again, like I said, this is the blueprint benefits part three, the different benefits at different disability ratings. And
Yes.
with that, again, this is Lindsay Kinslow. She is a veteran advocate, and we're going to let her take it from here. All right, Lindsay.
So, all right, this is part three of the mini series, and May is military month, so we spent the whole May, having all this great information that is out there on the web. However, it's not that easy to find or decipher. So, and then, most of us, like after we finish dealing with the VA anyway, we don't even want to like go on the website.
Right, right. That is so true.
Like, no, I'm good. I tried before. No, thank you. But yeah, so hopefully, with this 3-part series, and maybe, more to grow in the
Mhm.
future, but with this, maybe we can lessen, the frustration that comes along with filing a disability claim. Because a big part of that is lack of knowledge. So we don't know, right?
Mhm.
What the VA is looking for, or even how to get service connected, really.
Right.
And, a lot of people that get out of the military and throw in their records and they get, a number, and then they're like, oh, this is easy. And they tell everybody it's easy, but it's really not.
Right.
Yeah. Anybody, after 365 days, it becomes very, very hard, to file a disability claim. That's 365 days after discharge.
Mhm.
So we'll get started. So do you want me to do a recap? Maybe I could do a
Yeah,
recap.
do a recap for us. I
So,
appreciate
yeah, so just a little recap on the 7 ways of service connection. We talked about the direct service connection. We talked about aggravation. So that is something that was already a disability that you had before you came in the military, something that was waivable. So that got worse while you were in the military. You have presumptive service connection. That is, I always use Vietnam. There's a whole list of disabilities that come along with the Orange exposure that the VA has acknowledged. Those are presumptive service connections. Secondary service connection, that is when That is when your, let's say your right knee is going bad because your left knee is bad and you had to shift your weight over there, right, to the right side. Now that is no longer functionable as it was before. Then we have the paired organs. That's if you're service connected for one eye, let's say the left eye, and then the right eye goes bad, you automatically get that service connection. Then we have the VA hospital care treatment. So if anything goes wrong while you're under the care of the VA, you can file a claim for that. And then we have the disability through training. That is like VRE, Voc Rehab, on the job training that they provide. So if you get hurt on the job, then you can file a disability claim. So that was that, and we talked about like things that we need in the packet when we do file, and that's like your service treatment records, so your records that you had while you were in the military. Any treatment records, after the military, you'll need diagnosis. You'll need, a doctor, stating that, the disability is a direct result of, your active duty service, or secondary. You'll need the 526EZ, which is the claim form. And we can go, deeper, but but I'm going to direct you to the YouTube channel. To watch all three, all three, but definitely the second one, because we go a little bit deeper into like what is needed in to file a claim. So this week we get into the service connected, the benefits that you get at individual, like each individual rating. So we'll start at the 0%, which is non-compensation. However, you're still service connected, so there are benefits that you get, right? So you still have the 10-point veteran preference. So you have no cost health care. So that is if you're service connected. So whatever you're service connected for, you can utilize the VA, and you can to get examined for that particular disability. So then we also have the travel allowance. Now this is something that, I think we talked last live about the travel allowance that, a lot of veterans aren't aware. But, when you go to a VA facility, you can claim that mileage. And I believe mileage is what, 56, 57, something like that. Since look it up on IRS.gov for the exact amount, but you do get mileage from your house to that facility, and it does work. Sorry, I clicked out my laptop. So, but it does work. I actually filed a claim. It's better to do it online. I did it through paper because I was just trying to test out the system, and it's been probably 2 months. And so I was at the VA yesterday, and I was like, I just wanted to check in on this. And she was like, was it this year? I said, yeah, it was like 2 months ago that I filed it. She was like, oh yeah, it'll be a while. We're not even out of 2021. So
oh wow.
Yes. So they're still working on, those mileage claims from last year. So I highly recommend to go online and file for that mileage claim. So then you have the commissary and exchange privileges.
And this is at 0%, you said?
Yes.
I didn't know that you had that, like the commissary.
Yes. So the commissary is fairly new. And I say fairly new because I believe it was like 2019. When they said that the commissary, but of course, the pandemic hit and they shut down the post for everybody who was not, an ID card holder. So a lot of people didn't know about the commissary like that. That benefit, but it is out there. All you need is your VA ID card. So you have to go to your local VA and get your ID card, the one that says service connected disability on it, or service connected, the newer one.
I'm like, do I have it so I can? Actually, I'm gonna go get it real quick.
Yeah. So yeah, so all you need is the newer one to use the commissary in your exchange. You're also allowed to go online and use the exchange. Um, so that is at 0%. And again, 0% is no compensation. However, you still have benefits that you can use. I will add that sometimes you'll have multiple 0%, and then you can actually file to get 10%. Well,
So,
paid at a minimum 10%.
and
Yes.
the newer ones, I heard you say something
Yes.
about
Uh-huh.
is this the newest one?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, it looks like it. Does it have service connected on it?
it does.
Yep, that's the newer one.
Let me show y'all if I can get it. Oop, can I?
Your Army.
So, because it's funny, I'm just gonna say this. I it was a few years ago when these newer ones, I didn't know if there was anything else that came out. When you scan the old ones, it literally brought up your social security number and anybody could scan it. The older one, so if you guys still have that old one that you have not got it updated, if you get the app that scans anything, anybody can scan your old ID and get your social security number.
Right.
So please, if you have an old one, go get the new one.
Yes, yes. And I will say, since the pandemic, every VA operates different as far as when they're actually doing ID cards. Some are, appointment only, some are walk-ins. I mean, it just depends. So make sure you reach out to your local VA first, just to see when they're doing ID cards. Save yourself a trip.
Yeah.
So we talked about and so then we have the waiver for housing, so your funding fee.
Oh yeah.
So your VA home loan, you are able to get that at 0%, and at 10% or a compensatable rate, you're able to waive the funding fee. Disclaimer: I am not a real estate agent. So if I misspoke on that part, the 0 and 10, I apologize. But I will say reach out to a knowledgeable real estate agent that is knowledgeable with veterans and using the VA home loan to get more up-to-date information on that, because it does change all the time.
Yeah.
So you also have the burial and plot allowance. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know I can pull it up, the exact amount of what you're entitled to. I just suggest that you go on the VA website, because it is broken down by a lot, actually. So I actually just recommend like going online, Googling it to see what you're entitled to, because it does depend on, like, your rating and stuff like that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so that's a newer change.
Okay.
So maybe don't quote me on it, but like 2020, 2021 or something like that, they changed. They did an overhaul on the borough and plot allowances. And so we talked about the no cost health insurance. So again, you still get that at 10%. Also at 10%, you become eligible for vocational rehabilitation and employment. So this actually, I don't think we touched on it kind of, but this is a benefit to veterans who cannot hold down sustainable jobs, employment, right? Not the part-time jobs. And a lot of us cannot hold down sustainable jobs. I myself have come to terms that I might be one of those post-service
Yeah.
who cannot hold down a sustainable job. It was absolutely hard for me to stay in my last job for as long as I did. It
Oh,
was almost unbearable.
oh,
And yes, and the only thing that kept me going every day was veterans. So it was like, okay, I'm getting up. I have a calendar full of, appointments. Like I have
mhm.
to get up and I have to show up, not for
Yeah.
my, not for myself, but, for other veterans. I'm not saying that's a good, thing to do because
Mhm.
here I am, um, not
Yeah.
working a sustainable job, right? So moving on from that,
Yeah.
um, so I do recommend Voc Rehab. I actually utilized Voc Rehab for my last employment. Um, so you do on the job training and you get paid, that duration. And you have the VA, like you have preference for like medical and stuff like that. When you're going through that process, you can also utilize, like dental and stuff like that. So there's a lot. And it's not just for employment. They also have an entrepreneur track where they'll help you analyze your business plan and tell you like if
I
it's a
didn't know
valuable
that.
business. Yes.
Good. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. And then they also have like independent, I guess like an independent living track where they like um, offer like life skills classes and stuff to help you get back into society. So those are some of the programs that they have under the VRNE that I highly recommend if meet the criteria and you're out here struggling trying to find employment.
Mhm.
I highly and not because of you're just struggling, but because of your disabilities,
Yeah.
service-connected disabilities. I highly recommend going that route. Because if I did not go that route, let me just say they paid for my final class, my bachelor's, which I paid out of pocket because
Yeah.
I was transitioning out of the military at the same time the classes were on. Well, I went to go see my counselor when I got stateside,
Mhm.
and he's like, "Oh, you paid out of pocket? Oh, no problem. Sign this." And then the next thing I know, I got refunded.
That's love. Yeah.
Definitely, it was love. Definitely was love. Not only that, but I received the laptop, the Microsoft Office, the scan, matter of fact, I don't have the same laptop anymore. I do have it, but I don't use it. But I still have the scan software and all that
Nice.
that I use, right? And I still have the Microsoft Office and stuff that I use. So that is a great program,
Mhm.
I will say, and I actually used it myself. So yes. And so now we're moving on to like 20%.
Mhm.
And again, at 20%, you still get everything that you got previous. I don't actually think a, I don't think there's anything new at 20%. Actually, I'm looking at my notes.
Mhm.
Um, So moving on to 30%. Now there is a big benefit here at 30% because this is when you get paid for your dependents.
Ah.
Yes. And if you're male to male, I'm sorry, veteran to veteran,
Uh-huh.
you claim each other's dependents.
Oh.
Yes. So you can claim, dependents if I'm claiming 3, you're claiming 3, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Talk about multiple streams of income.
Right.
So that is one that a lot of people miss.
Mhm.
And I want to say if you don't catch it within like the first year, you don't get that back pay.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So if you find out in 5 years that you're not getting paid for your dependents, then
Miss.
it starts that day that you submit either the intent to file or the actual claim itself.
Okay.
And that is at 30%. Um, so at 50%, this actually is beneficial for my retirees. 50% because you get concurrent receipt of the military and the VA pay.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
That's nice.
So at 50%. I always tell my retirees, 50s aren't going to be our magic number. If you can get 50%, then that's what you want to get, right? A lot of retirees don't even think about
Yeah.
filing a claim until they're ready to retire, like their second job or, things like of that nature. Because most retirees go straight into another
Mhm.
job, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I stay on them as much as I can. Like, hey, increase! Don't you want the concurrent pay? Let's get ready for life after retirement. Like, you don't want to be in this juggle trying to retire from most. Most go to the federal government. So I'll use that. Like, you don't want to, be in this juggle. Retiring from the federal government, trying to figure that part out and
Right.
increasing at the same time.
Right.
Have
Right.
that done first. Um, yeah, so that is at 50%. And then at 60%, um, you still have all the same compensations. However, at 60%, your so what is it called? I'm sorry. Um, the preference. So the 10-point preference and stuff. Well, your application process can be expedited at 60% rating. A lot
Mm,
of people don't know that either.
didn't know that.
Um,
Didn't know that.
yeah, it can definitely be expedited at 60%. I'll throw in at 70%. So I want, as a veteran advocate, when I worked at my previous job, one thing that I've realized that was lacking was the knowledge of the healthcare.
Mm,
Right. So I always say 70% is the magic number because 70% can get you into, the assisted living facilities that, the VA offers.
okay.
For older veterans, sitting at 50 and 60, if God forbid if something happens, they're
Mm,
not going to be able to utilize all of the healthcare benefits that they, would have been entitled to
mm,
had they, increased way back when. Also, there is individual unemployability. So if you meet this criteria, um, I think we touched on this the last
a
live.
little bit. A little bit.
Yeah. So individual unemployability, of course, this is a case basis. So if your disability keeps you from, finding gainful employment, then you can apply for this. So you do have to have a 70% rating, and you do have to have one disability rating at um, one at 60% or more, or two with the 41 being 40% to total 70% or more. So one disability rating at 60%, or you have two or more that collectively equal 70%. However, one of them have to be 40%, right? So that, and you cannot hold down a steady job, right? So those are the criterias to actually file for individual unemployability. And again, if you cannot hold down this job, I highly, suggest that you do it. Now you can rehab out of that. It's not set in stone. So it's just like SSDI, if
Mm,
it's better, then you don't need it anymore, then you get rid of it. No, I'm good. If you do find a job while you're on it, you have, I think it's 1 year. Um, you have 1 year to actually work that job and still get paid at that rate. So individual unemployability, let me back up, actually pays you at 100% rating, even though you don't have 100% organic. So that is what the 100%, the individual unemployability
mhm.
does. So again, one service connected disability at 60%, or you have multiple that equals 70% collective, one at 40%, and you cannot hold down a job.
Well, I kind of ask a question about that because I
Yes.
What about people that are entrepreneurs? Like if
So, yep. So that goes back to you cannot make more than a national poverty line.
okay.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you are, if you're taking an owner's draw,
Hmm.
then it can't be more than the national poverty line. And so I highly recommend go on there and see what it is. Like for me, single, no kids, it's, I don't know, maybe 13,000 around there or something like that is really, really low. And that is, part of the reason why I haven't, filed for other, disabilities is because I have this business and because I'm like, oh, I don't want to, it's a gray area.
Yeah, it's a great
It's a
area.
gray area, right? And I like to think that I keep, pretty good financial records that, like it would be like, but it really is a gray area. And I recommend if you're on it not to work at all.
Mhm.
Because like I brought up last live, they will check
Mhm.
and they do check.
Yeah.
And you'll end up with a letter in the mail saying you have a debt. You have a debt and
But
you
we
have
don't
no,
want that,
yeah,
y'all.
yep, you have a debt and you have no more of these benefits.
Mm.
So at 100%, since we're here at the unemployability, at 100%, you get dependent dependence educational assistance. So that is like your child or even your spouse wants to go back to school or is in school, they get a stipend every month. Excuse me,
Okay.
every month that they're in school. It's chapter 35, actually, is what it's called. Every month that they're in school, they get a stipend of some sort. I don't like to put the exact amount out because it does change. And I don't want anybody on here talking about, oh, she gave the wrong information. But I believe it is over $1,200 a month.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Yeah. So I haven't received that, of course,
Mhm.
but I've helped plenty of
Yeah.
veterans, receive that benefit. And actually in the article that I was in the magazine, it talks about that
Mhm.
because their child was in school
Yeah.
and because I helped them get all these benefits back paid, this child who was paying her way through cosmetology school is going to be, well, was back paid all that money.
Oh, nice.
Hmm. And
That's
moving forward, they have that, that stipend to help them out. So that is at 100% rate. You also have healthcare, of course, but your dependents. So you have Champ VA. Now you aren't authorized to use TRICARE and Champ VA at the same time. That is called double dipping, and the government doesn't like that.
mhm.
Um, but if you do, if you're not retired, this is a great benefit for you to save money for healthcare. I don't know how good it is or what doctors you can see or anything like that. But I have not had a lot of people complain about Champ VA, and it is free.
But
So
that's only at 100% though.
that is at 100%. Yes, unless you have individual unemployability where you're getting those benefits at 100% rate.
Mhm.
Also at 100%, you have dental.
That's nice.
So dental is a big thing.
Yeah.
Dental is a really, really big thing. Um, you also get uniformed service ID card. So this is through like on the military side. This is
Mhm.
so you can get through the gate and everything. You scan just like your retiree or active duty.
Yeah.
You get to scan. You get to use the MWR services. So the whole entire installation pretty much is open to you at 100%. Um, and I highly recommend getting that. And then also there is what's called aid in attendance or housebound, adaptation services. This is at 100%, and then you have an additional 60% rating, you are actually able to do that. So let's just say I would like to, I say, let's say you have, this is an example. If you have one rating at 100% and then
Mhm.
you have another one at 60, then you know you qualify.
Okay.
Yes. Then you know you qualify for housebound aid and attendance. So I highly recommend looking at that. This is for your dependent that is actually taking care of you. Just to get some, some type of compensation.
Right.
Um, yeah, so I think that is, hold on, let me look at my notes. Pretty much it for the federal side. Oh, and I do want to say, even though if you're not service connected, there are still benefits, right? So um, you still can apply for veterans preference, just using your 8214 and stuff. You can enroll in healthcare. You may or may not have a fee attached to it, like a copay. It does go off of like how much money you make, so your earned income. So if you have a job, there's strong possibility that you won't even qualify for it, but it's still an option for you to try.
Right.
So with that, I just say, if you got hurt in the military, just file a claim. Just file a claim, right? Um,
Right.
and that brings it up. A lot of people think, oh, I'm not worthy of it. I don't deserve it. Anything like that. But I'm here to tell you that if you put those boots on your feet,
And it's true.
you deserve. You deserve what you deserve. If something
Right.
happened to you while you were in the military, you deserve it. It's very, very hard to do what we do.
Yeah.
Very hard.
Like I told you, I was one of those people. I didn't go for a while. I didn't go until I had to.
Right.
And then when I went, I had to get surgery.
Yeah,
That tells you I just didn't do it. And
right.
when I was like, I am hurting. My foot looks really afflicted. Like and I actually when I went, that's when I actually had to get surgery.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I just really, really want to change. And that was like, one of my goals of being a veteran advocate was to change that stigma of, I'm not missing a limb or anything like that. So I don't deserve it, but you
Right,
do deserve it.
right.
You do deserve it, especially like the mental health piece. I mean,
Oh, yes.
that's,
Yeah.
we'll talk about that.
No,
We'll come back to that mental health piece because I have a story to tell about that.
that might just be a whole segment because that,
That actually is a good idea.
yeah, because that's so important. And what I've been hearing, I'm going to just touch on this real quick and get off. It's just, it's very disappointing when I'm hearing that you have these veterans that literally have real issues like whether it's MST and they're in deep depression and they cannot get the services they need when it's backed up 3 to 6 months and people are saying I need help now and then
Mhm.
they're calling the hotline. I just literally heard that some women or veterans did a test, basically market study, research, and called this one hotline for I think 30 or 40 days. I can't remember that number, but I remember 24 of those days nobody answered the phone. And to hear, like I said, this one of my women veterans called me and in severe depression and can't get an appointment for 3 to 6 months, and then we wonder why the suicide rate is so high. That is so unacceptable. I don't know. Like I let me say this and get off.
Yeah.
I've been on one this week. This week has not been good mentally for me when it comes to as far as I am a defender of the underdog. I am that person
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
genuinely does this to help people out. and to hear the things that people are going through and to hear the backlash other people are throwing at them or vitriol that people are throwing at them or just not getting clear answers, it's not our place to assume. It's not. It's not our place to assume. It's our place to get the facts and get people help.
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Absolutely.
I'm going to
Absolutely.
be on
But
my.
yeah, I think the mental health piece should actually be a whole separate, maybe that's what we should do,
Yeah.
because my own story, it took me 3 years to
Mhm.
get into mental health.
Wow.
3 years.
Right.
And it wasn't like I wasn't trying,
Right. Right.
because I was. But I have a whole story on that. So maybe we should save that,
Mhm.
because
We'll
woo,
open that up with the mental health, please, definitely, because it's needed.
yeah,
It's needed.
yeah. I mean, even now, my mental health provider ghosted me, right? So I've been, it's pushed me to be more, mindful of what's going on with me.
Yeah.
But literally in the midst of treatment, just I haven't heard from him. Even, my psychiatrist ghosted me.
Yeah.
So
Hey.
yeah, so I mean, I have experience in advocating myself, but not to this extent where I'm having to manage my own mental health in this manner, knowing that I need the services. Right? I'm like,
Mhm.
here we go again with this. I mean, I just have to do what I have to do to make sure that I'm good. But not everybody,
That's what I was just about to say.
right? Not everybody
Yeah,
has the strength to do
they
that,
don't.
right?
Like most people don't. And, I mean, you got the like you said, you can advocate for you at least have the strength and the knowledge to advocate for yourself. People don't have that.
Right.
The people like when that bandwidth is gone, like if they're in a heightened state or a manic state or whatever the state that they're in mentally that is keeping them from being able to speak for themselves, to advocate
Absolutely. Absolutely.
for themselves. I don't understand how it's even acceptable to have a 3 to 6 or your case get it in three. I see why being in this environment now, being trying to advocate and speak for and give information to people that are don't have it or can't speak for themselves. I see why the suicide rate is so high. And it's
Unfortunately.
sad. It saddens me. Like I said,
Mhm.
I've been pissed off this week because, like I said, I'm just that defender, the underdog type of person. I want to rah for everybody.
Right.
And to hear the things that I hear from other people that I'm like, that's not your place. There's actual you have to get actual fact and information. You're making it worse when you're trying to you say people shouldn't have it because of this or you assume something about somebody that you don't have solid fact on. I go according to the facts. I go according to how I analyze the stats and the analytics on it, and then go to the probability and the possibility of certain things happen to
That's right.
people, and then and get them the help that they need.
Absolutely.
So let me get yeah because
And I know we steered away from the benefits for a
yeah,
second. However, it's needed. It's needed to talk
mhm,
about mental health, like in the middle of the midst of everything,
mhm,
anything, anytime. It's needed because we are struggling.
yeah,
Not just veterans, but everybody. Like,
everybody. But this like just with the past few weeks of or yeah, few weeks of everything going on. You don't, I mean, I shouldn't say and other people should know, but you got other people, again, these things could be very triggering to people that have been in the military in certain situations.
right,
And you don't have the personnel there to help. Like,
right.
I really don't understand that. Like I said, this has been a hard week for me as the person that, for the person that isn't that even physically bothered as far as what's going on in certain things are not happening, put it that way, they're not happening to me, but when I see it happening to somebody else, I literally take that on like,
That's
hey,
your passion. That's
yeah,
where your
because it
passion
is.
lies. Yeah.
I genuinely fight for people.
Right.
That's just who I am. It's in my DNA.
Right.
Like it just is. So okay, we're going to get back to y'all, especially on this mental health piece. But if you have any questions, any comments, put them below. I know this is a holiday weekend, so a lot of you guys are going to be watching this on replay.
Yes.
Just give us a shout out. But yes, any questions, just like I said, either myself or Lindsay, we will be glad to reach out back out to you. So with that being said, have an amazing weekend with this Memorial Day weekend. And for all of you guys that are remembering people that you have lost, prayers go out to you and
Yes.
your family. So you guys have an amazing, safe, and blessed weekend. And until the next time, we'll see you later. All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.